pleasure now to have on the Frankly Speaking hotline the post and pregame show host of the LSU Tigers, works for the LSU Football Network, Hunt Palmer. Hunt, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today. We get to watch, it's not actually live sports, but it's live and it's sports, so I guess that's a good thing after 6 weeks of nothing.
Well, and especially a big day for you. Before we get into the NFL draft today, let me ask you, during this challenging time, how's everyone doing over there with your family and you?
My family's good. I'm good. It's, down here in South Louisiana, it's a bit of a hotbed. I've got a lot of friends and family and work colleagues down in New Orleans, and it's been a difficult time down there. And I know some people that have been affected, so obviously it's very prevalent here. But my family's doing okay, and we understand that there's a lot bigger issues than wanting to watch sports. So we're trying to stay inside, trying to stay safe.
Let me ask you this, Hunt. 2018, the LSU Tigers football team goes 10-3, 5-3 in the conference. A year later, they go undefeated, and they win the national championship. For our listeners out there, what does it feel like, you being a member of the LSU family? And explain to our listeners the emotional roller coaster from going from 2018 to the national championship in 2019.
Well, I think entering 2018 season, you had very little hope around the LSU football program. You're coming off Ed Orgeron's first year as a full-time head coach, where you were absolutely destroyed by Mississippi State early on. You lost to Troy. Not really competitive against Alabama, which had kind of been the benchmark over the last 10 years of what you were trying to achieve. And everybody kind of looked around and went, well, this is not going to work. They've made a hire. It's not going to work out. And you're just going to have to ride out the end of the Ed Orgeron regime until they can hire a new coach and things can turn around. And you thought at that point that Miles Brennan was probably going to be the quarterback. As a very young player, a guy who looked underdeveloped, it probably wasn't ready. So they went out and they got a guy off Ohio State's bench to come in and compete. And we didn't know much about him. His spring game stats were all right, and he had a nice high school career, but he didn't really know. And he was thrust into action in the middle of the summer, and then was the starter, having been on campus for a very limited amount of time. And I thought Joe Burrow played okay in 2018. He was tough as nails. He was very good in terms of decision-making, did not turn the ball over. But, it was an okay season. You lost 3 conference games, and you ended on a really heartbreaking note, losing a game in 7 overtimes at Texas A&M that you probably should have won 3 or 4 times, and it didn't follow your direction. And then you go beat Central Florida without their quarterback in a bowl game. So, what did you really know? Not a ton. It was a nice finish to the season, and Burrow had shown that he was improving as his first year as a college starter. But, it wasn't anything to write home about. A 10-3 season is just okay at LSU. But I said many times entering last season, the 2019 season, that I felt as good about LSU at the quarterback spot entering that year as I had since really 2006 with Jamarcus Russell. Now, LSU had some good quarterback seasons since 2006. Matt Flynn did a really nice job in 2007. Zach Mettenberger's 2013 season was very, very good. But you didn't feel great entering those seasons because you didn't know. But the way that Burrow had played, his maturity, his decision-making, kind of the skill set that he had, you thought that he could have a pretty good year, and there was a lot of talent around it. Now, nobody could have foreseen what we saw over those 4 months at the end of 2019 and into January of 2020. But there was a chance, and then they got hot and lit it up in their opener, and then really made a statement at Texas that the offense was for real. And once the defense got healthy and got everything together the last half of the year, it was obvious that LSU was, to me, the best team in the country, because there was no team in college football that could do anything to stop them on offense. And by the end of it, the defense was as good as any in college football, too. And you'll see that here over the next 3 days when draft names start coming off the board. So it was a wild ride, one that I'll never forget. For me, I wasn't around in 1958, and most people around here weren't old enough to watch the 1958 team play. So when you look at 2003 was our first national championship for this generation. 2007 was another really fun one down in New Orleans. But 2019 Tigers are the gold standard here in Baton Rouge and will be probably forever.
Now, we're talking to Hunt Palmer from the LSU Radio Network. Upcoming year, Hunt, do you, and this might be a tough question for you because we're not really sure what's going on yet, but in the upcoming year, do you think that student athletes, we'll talk about football players in general, should they be asked to come back to compete in the fall if the other students are told not to come back on campus?
That's tough. Selfishly, we all want sports to be played. It's part of our day-to-day lives. It's something that is our distraction from the tough stuff in life and at work and all of that. It's what we do on the weekends. We watch sports and we pay attention to sports, and it's just part of what we do. And to have that taken away is really difficult. But I think we understand that there's a lot bigger issues at hand, and there are people that are a lot smarter than me, the guy who comes on and talks about the LSU-Auburn football game, that are making these kind of decisions. So I don't have enough information to be definitive. I certainly understand that there's a massive risk out there, and we want to keep people safe, and that if we've got to get this thing in check until there's some sort of vaccine or more frequent testing, that's what we've got to do. But man, I certainly hope we can play this year.
Now, let me ask you this. The upcoming season, first of all, before we get to the upcoming season, Ed Orgeron, you talked about him a little bit, and if I remember correctly, now I could be off, but you're around that area, he wasn't actually the fans' favorite to take over the LSU Tigers when he did. I mean, what has been the major switch that he does that got this team going last year?
Well, he hired Joe Brady, and he got Joe Burrow brought in. They changed what they wanted to do on offense. And look, there is never been a shortage of offensive talent at LSU. Yes, the offense has grossly underperformed, specifically in the passing game. But if you look at the wide receivers that have come through this program over the last decade, they're Pro Bowl guys and stars in the NFL. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Dwayne Bowe, DJ Shark's having a great career right now in Jacksonville. There have been tons of star receivers in this program. They just haven't had the plan in place to spread the field and throw the football. When Les Miles was the head coach at LSU, it didn't matter if you had NFL guys on the outside. They were going to put two tight ends on the field, and they were going to toss it to a stud running back and try to wear you down. That's just the way he wanted to play. So Ed Orgeron took Steve Ensminger as his offensive coordinator after a failed experiment with Matt Canada that was forced on him, and that's just not a guy who was prepared to spread the field and go score. And LSU's offense scored some points last year, but when they played Alabama, they scored 0. So he went to Steve Ensminger at the end of the season and said, look, we got to go to the spread. And Steve Ensminger, in a profession of college coaching and sports coaching that's littered with egos and men who will only do it their way, has none of that. He likes to win, and he loves LSU. He's an alum. He's a Louisiana guy. He's going to finish his career here. He said, Ed, go find a guy to run the spread. I'll learn it, and we'll figure it out. So they went and found Joe Brady from down the road to the Saints, and he said, okay, we're going to go 4 and 5 wide. We're going to get in the shotgun, and we're going to try to go score 60 points. And that's what they tried to do. That was the difference. It wasn't the defense. It wasn't the personnel outside of getting Joe Burrow to be the trigger man. It was the scheme that Joe Brady brought in.
Now, before we get to tonight's draft, the upcoming year in college football for LSU, you're losing Joe Brady, obviously, the coordinator, and you're losing a bunch of obviously terrific athletes. What are you projecting? How much, if the same success, can the Tigers have next year?
They're not going to be quite as good, but it should be a really good team, and they will compete in the SEC West to get to Atlanta. They may not get there, but they'll compete. A lot of it's going to be on the offensive line, which, based on how you want to determine this thing, loses essentially 4 starters, but really probably only 3. And they've got to figure what they want to do at left tackle. Their replacement at left tackle is currently suspended from the team, although they expect him back once he gets his personal affairs in order in the fall. So the offensive line is going to be a big deal, and then you got to see what Miles Brennan can do with the trigger man. They've got a host of weapons, maybe the best wide receiving core in the country, a loaded running back room. They got the best tight end prospect in the history of 247 Sports coming in, Eric Gilbert. So they've got a ton of weapons on offense, and an old quarterback at Miles Brennan who's in his fourth year to try to figure out how to score. And then on defense, Bo Pelini's back to run the defense, and they've still got a ton of athletes. The secondary's loaded. They've got to figure out what they want to do at linebacker because Patrick Queen will go in the first round tonight, and then Jacob Phillips will go probably tomorrow or on Saturday. But they've got a really old, solid defensive front, and it'll be very good on defense. So yeah, there are a lot of guys that are going to come up the board here for the next 3 days. But this program recruits at a top 10 level every year. Most years top 5. They'll be okay talent-wise. They got to figure out the offensive line and see what Miles Brennan can do at quarterback. But I expect at least a 10-2 season, maybe 11-1 or 12-0 if everything falls in the right place.
We're talking to Hunt Palmer from the LSU Radio Network. All right, Hunt, now the big day here, the NFL Draft. Joey Burrows, I always say projected because I've learned in this business nothing's definite till it actually happens. Projected number 1 pick by the Bengals tonight. You talked about him from 2018 to 2019. First question is, what did you think was Joe's biggest area of improvement from 18 to 19, and what do you think might be, something he needs to work on when he gets to the NFL?
Well, Burrow last year in 2018, his first year as a starter, what he did exceptionally well was make decisions. He did not turn the ball over until the Alabama game. That was his first interception of the entire season. He nearly set a record at LSU for throws without an interception. So he always made good decisions. He was just put in a terrible position by a bad offensive team that, generally speaking, only had 1 or 2 players out in a route. Well, then you put 5 guys out in a route constantly, and he is making those decisions, but he's got more options. And so all of a sudden, the completion percentage goes through the roof because he always knew where to go with it. He just didn't have places to go. So I think the scheme helped him a ton there. And then it's just being able to play. I mean, you realize by the time he started his first game against Miami in 2018, he had not really played football in 3 years. He'd just been sitting on the bench at Ohio State. So I think just experience and the scheme were his biggest deal. It's not like he got bigger, stronger, faster, smarter. He just got put in position to do it. And I think in the NFL, just like anything, the quickest, the thing that's going to be the toughest transition is the speed of the game. Everything just moves a lot faster. But he handled every speed defense they saw last year exceptionally well. There are going to be bumps in the road when you go to a bad team and a bad organization, which you will in Cincinnati. But you hope that you kind of lead the turnaround. And I think that you just can't find the one weakness that he'll never improve upon is he's not going to get a stronger arm. But he has plenty of arm. It doesn't look like Brett Favre. It doesn't look like Jamarcus Russell. I mean, he's not going to, win a long toss competition. But he throws it plenty strong enough, and when he makes the right read, he gets it where it needs to go. So I think he's as good a quarterback prospect has come out in a long time.
Now, before we let you go, Hunt, I know you've seen, obviously in your time, a bunch of NFL drafts, but why don't you let the listeners know tonight you're going to be obviously watching the NFL draft. And first of all, the first part of the question is what it's going to be like and feel like to see Joe go number 1. But according to mock drafts, from what I'm hearing, there could be up to 7 first-round draft picks out of LSU with Justin Jefferson, Clavon Chasen, Patrick Queen, Kristen Fulton, Grant Delpit, and Lloyd Cushenberry is on the brink of first and second round. What, as the radio host that does the pre- and post-game shows for LSU, what's the moment going to be like when you see all these players, being drafted tonight?
Well, tonight's a special night for LSU because I would imagine it's going to be as highly rated in the NFL draft as there has ever been because we're just dying for something to happen live. And we just haven't had anything live in 6 weeks to watch. And so tonight, if you're a sports person, because I'm a college guy, I don't worship the NFL on Sundays. I play a lot of golf on Sundays. The NFL doesn't really do it for me. But tonight, I'll be locked in for every pick because I haven't seen sports in 6 weeks. And so the entire country is probably going to be like that. And it's going to be a 3-hour infomercial on LSU's 2019 football team. And for the people around here in Baton Rouge and in Louisiana, this is a ride that we'll never forget. Just the 15-0 run, just breaking every record, winning every award they could hand out. This is the most special team any of us has ever seen. And for us, we believe it's the best college football team and the most accomplished football team in the history of the sport. You can debate that. It's subjective. And you want to talk about the Nebraska teams in the 90s, the Miami team 2000, 2001. You can have that discussion. But for us in Louisiana, we're going to take the 2019 Tigers, and this is their final hurrah together. This is the final time that Joe Burrow is an LSU Tiger until he becomes a Bengal. And the rest of the guys you mentioned, I don't know that Cushenberry will get into the first round, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could possibly, and that's the guy that you didn't name. So I think that there are 4 guys that are locks to go in the first round tonight, maybe a 5th or a 6th sneak in. We'll see, but it's going to be a lot of love for the purple and gold, and it's kind of the end of the run for what was the most special team we've ever watched. So it'll be a special night in Louisiana for sure, and these guys deserve it. They've given all of us one of the best rides in the history of the sport.
Yeah, they certainly do deserve it. That goes without question. Hunt, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Hey, I enjoyed it. Enjoy the draft tonight.
All right, you too, my friend. That was Hunt Palmer, the LSU